Hello, my dear little and big listeners. It is that time again. Grab a cookie, a tea or cocoa and snuggle up, because it will be the magically fairy tale like again. You can find the matching recipe in the description or at the end of the video. And today I will whisk you away to the realm of Cinderella. Come along. A rich man's wife became sick, and when she felt that her end was drawing near, she called her only little daughter to her beside and said, "Dear child, remain pious and good, and the dear God will always protect you, and I will look down on you from heaven and will be near you." Thereupon she closed her eyes and died. The girl went out to her mother's grave every day and wept and remained pious and good. When winter came, the snow spread a white cloth over the grave, and when the spring sun had removed it again, the man took another wife. The wife had brought 2 daughters into the house with her, who were beautiful and fair of face, but vile and black of heart. Then a bad time began for the poor stepchild. "Is the stupid goose to sit in the parlor with us?" they said. "Who wants to eat bread must earn it. Out with the kitchen maid." They took her beautiful clothes away from her, put an old grey smock on her, and gave her wooden shoes. "Just look at the proud princess! How decked out she is!" they cried, laughed, and led her into the kitchen. There she had to do work from morning till evening, get up early before daybreak, carry water, make the fire, cook and wash. On top of that, the sisters did everything imaginable to cause her heartache, mocked her and emptied her peas and lentils into the ashes so that she had to sit and pick them out again. In the evenings, when she had worked herself weary, she did not get into a bed, but had to lie down next to the hearth in the ashes. And because she always looked dusty and dirty, for this reason they called her Cinderella. It happened that the father once was wanted to go to the fair, so he asked the 2 stepdaughters what he should bring them back. "Beautiful dresses," said one, "pearls and precious stones," the second. "But you, Cinderella," he said, "what do you want to have?" "Father, the first twig that knocks against your head on your way home, break that off for me." He now bought beautiful dresses, pearls, and precious stones for the 2 stepsisters, and on the way back, as he was riding through a green bush, a hazel twig brushed against him and knocked off his head. Then he broke off the twig and took it with him. When he came home, he gave the stepdaughters what they had wished for, and he gave Cinderella the twig from the hazel bush. Cinderella thanked him, went to her mother's grave, and planted the twig on it, and wept so much that the tears fell down upon it and watered it. However, it grew and became a beautiful tree. Cinderella went under it 3 times every day, wept and prayed, and every time a little white bird came to the tree, and when she expressed a wish, the little bird threw down to her what she had wished for. Now it happened that the king proclaimed a festival that was to last for 3 days, and to which all the beautiful maidens in the country were invited, so that his son might choose a bride. When the 2 stepsisters heard that they too were to appear there, they were in high spirits, called Cinderella and said, "Comb our hair, brush our shoes, and fasten our buckles. We are going to the wedding at the king's castle." Cinderella obeyed, but wept because she too would gladly have gone with them to the dance, and begged her stepmother to allow her to go. "You, Cinderella," she said, "are covered in dust and dirt, and you want to go to the wedding? You have no clothes and shoes. And you want to dance?" But when she kept on begging, she finally said, "I have emptied a dish of lentils into the ashes for you. If you have picked the lentils out again in 2 hours, you shall go with us." The girl went through the back door into the garden and cried, "You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, all you little birds under heaven, come and help me pick the good ones into the pot, the bad ones into your crop." The 2 white pigeons came in through the kitchen's window, and after them the turtle doves, and finally all the little birds under heaven whirred and swarmed in and settled down around the ashes. And the pigeons nodded their little heads and began, "Peck, peck, peck, peck." And then the others also began, "Peck, peck, peck, peck," and picked all the good little grains into the dish. Hardly had an hour passed when they were already finished and all flew out again. Then the girl brought the dish to her stepmother, rejoiced and believed she might now go to the wedding with them. But she said, "No, Cinderella, you have no clothes, and you cannot dance. You will only be laughed at." When she now wept, she said, "If you can pick 2 dishes full of lentils out of the ashes for me in 1 hour, you shall go with us," and thought she can never do that. When she had emptied the 2 dishes of lentils into the ashes, the girl went through the back door into the garden and cried, "You tame pigeons, you turtle doves, and all you birds under heaven, come and help me pick the good ones into the pot, the bad ones into your crop." Then the 2 white pigeons came in through the kitchen window, and after them the turtle doves, and finally all the birds under heaven whirred and swarmed in and settled down around the ashes. And the pigeons nodded their little heads and began, "Peck, peck, peck, peck." And then the others also began, "Peck, peck, peck, peck," and picked all the good grains into the dishes. And before half an hour had passed, they were already finished and all flew out again. Then the girl carried the dishes to her stepmother, rejoiced and believed she was now allowed to go to the wedding with them. But she said, "It is all of no use to you. You are not coming with us. For you have no clothes and cannot dance. We would have to be ashamed of you." Thereupon she turned her back on her and hurried away with the 2 proud daughters. Now, when no one else was at home, Cinderella went to her mother's grave beneath the hazel tree and cried, "Little tree, shiver and quiver, throw gold and silver over me." Then the bird threw a gold and silver dress down to her, and slippers embroidered with silk and silver. In all haste she put on the dress and went to the wedding. But her sisters and her stepmother did not recognize her and thought she must be a foreign princess. She looked so beautiful in the golden dress. They did not think of Cinderella at all, and thought she was sitting at home in the dirt and picking the lentils out of the ashes. The prince came up to her, took her by the hand and danced with her. He would not dance with anyone else, so that he never let go of her hand. And when another came to invite her, he said, "This is my partner." She danced until it was evening, then she wanted to go home. But the prince said, "I will go with you and accompany you," for he wanted to see to whom the beautiful girl belonged. But she slipped away from him and jumped into the pigeon's house. Now the prince waited until the father came and told him that the foreign maiden had jumped into the pigeon's house. The old man thought, could it be Cinderella? And they had to bring him an axe and a pick so that he could break the pigeon's house in 2, but no one was inside. And when they came into the house, Cinderella lay in her dirty clothes in the ashes, and a dim little oil lamp burned in the chimney. For Cinderella had quickly jumped down from the back of the pigeon's house and had run to the little hazel tree. There She had taken off the beautiful clothes and laid them on the grave, and the bird had taken them away again, and then she had seated herself in the kitchen in the ashes in her grey little smock. On the next day, when the festival began anew, and the parents and stepsisters were gone again, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Little tree, shiver and quiver, throw gold and silver over me." Then the bird threw down a much more magnificent dress than on the previous day. And when she appeared at the wedding in this dress, everyone was astonished at her beauty. The prince, however, had waited until she came, immediately took her by the hand, and danced with her alone. When the others came and invited her, he said, "This is my partner." Now, when it was evening, she wanted to leave, and the prince followed her and wanted to see which house she went into. But she sprang away from him and into the garden behind the house. There stood a beautiful large tree on which the most magnificent pears hung. She climbed as nimbly as a squirrel up among the branches, and the prince did not know where she had gone. But he waited until the father came and said to him, "The foreign maiden has slipped away from me, and I believe she has jumped up onto the pear tree." The father thought, "Could it be Cinderella?" Had the axe brought and chopped the tree down, but no one was in it. And when they came into the kitchen, Cinderella lay there in the ashes, as she always did, for she had jumped down from the other side of the tree, had returned the beautiful clothes to the bird on the little hazel tree, and had put on her grey little smock. On the third day, when the parents and sisters were gone, Cinderella went again to her mother's grave and said to the little tree, "Little tree, shiver and quiver, throw gold and silver over me." Now the bird threw a dress down to her that was so splendid and gleaming, such as she had never had before, and the slippers were entirely golden. When she came to the wedding in the dress, they all did not know what to say for her amazement. The prince danced entirely alone with her, and if anyone invited her, he said, "This is my partner." When it was evening, Cinderella wanted to leave, and the prince wanted to accompany her, but she slipped away from him so quickly that he could not follow. But the prince had used a trick, and had the whole staircase smeared with pitch, so, as she sprang down, the girl's left slipper remained stuck. The prince picked it up, and it was small and dainty and entirely golden. And the next morning he went with it to the man and said to him, "No other shall become my wife than she whose foot this golden shoes fits." Then the two sisters were glad, because they had beautiful feet. The eldest went into the chamber with the shoe and wanted to try it on, and her mother stood by. But she could not get her big toe into it, and the shoe was too small for her. Then her mother handed her a knife and said, "Cut that toe off. When you are a queen, you will no longer need to go on foot." The girl cut the toe off, forced her foot into the shoe, bit back the pain, and went out to the prince. Then he took her as his bride onto his horse and rode away with her. But they had to pass by the grave, and there sat the two pigeons on the little hazel tree and cried, "Rock-de-goo, rock-de-goo, blood is in the shoe. The shoe is too small. The true bride still sits at home." Then he looked at her foot and saw how the blood was pouring out. He turned his horse around, brought the false bride back home, and said this was not the right one. The other sister should put the shoe on. And then this one went into the chamber and luckily got her toes into the shoe. But her heel was too large. Then her mother handed her a knife and said, "Cut a piece of your heel. When you are queen, You will no longer need to go on foot." The girl cut a piece of her heel, forced her foot into the shoe, bit back the pain, and went out to the prince. Then he took her as his bride onto his horse and rode away with her. As he passed by the little hazel tree, the two pigeons sat on it and cried, "Rock-de-goo, rock-de-goo, blood is in the shoe. The shoe is too small. The true bride is still at home." He looked down at her foot and saw how the blood was welling out of the shoe and had risen entirely red on her white stockings. Then he turned his horse and brought the false bride back home. "This is also not the right one," he said. "Have you no other daughter?" "No," said the man. "There's only a little stunted Cinderella left from my deceased wife. She cannot possibly be the bride." The prince said he should send her up. But the mother answered, "Oh no, she is much too dirty. She must not let herself be seen." But he absolutely wanted to have her, and Cinderella had to be called. Then she first washed her hands and face clean, went in and bowed before the prince, who handed her the golden shoe. Then she sat down on a stool, pulled her foot out of the heavy wooden shoe and put it into the slipper, which fit like a glove. And when she stood up and the prince looked her in the face, he recognized the beautiful girl who had danced with him and cried, "This is the true bride!" The stepmother and the two sisters were frightened and grew pale with anger. But he took Cinderella onto his horse and rode away with her. As they passed by the little hazel tree, the two white pigeons cried, "Rock-de-goo, rock-de-goo, no blood in the shoe. The shoe is not too small. The true bride, he brings her home." And when they had cried that, they both came flying down and sat on Cinderella's shoulders, one on the right, the other on the left, and remained sitting there. When the wedding with the prince was to be held, the false sisters came, wanting to ingratiate themselves and take part in her good fortune. Now, as the bridal couple was going to the church, the eldest was on the right, the youngest on the left side. Then the pigeons pecked out one eye of each of them. Afterwards, as they were going out, the eldest was on the left and the youngest on the right. Then the pigeons pecked out the other eye of each of them. And so they were punished for their wickedness and falsehood with blindness for the rest of their lives. With this, we leave the fairy tale realm again for today. To all the little dwarfs who have to go to bed now, sleep well and dream something beautiful. To all the others, I wish a magical time. Hopefully, we will hear from each other again at the next fairy tale. I look forward to seeing you. See you soon and stay enchanted.